Cricket has never finished at the close of play. It lives in the arguments, the memories, the comment sections. Cricket makes you talk. Combox is entering that chat. Welcome everyone to a big crossover here with good areas of first umpire, or Jarrod Kimber and Deepak Goyal. Today, Deepak, being the massive nerd that he is, was like, let's just try and work out where Virat Kohli ends up in the top greatest all-format cricketers of all time. And I was like, boring! Let us rank the top 10 all-format cricketers of all time. I spent quite a few hours on this, Deepak, but I must say, it's not like my test book. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's called The Art of Batting. I was going to pick it up, but my computer's on top of it. I can't even do the joke. I can't even do the joke. Where I spent 18 months, but I came up with a method, right? Let me tell you this. I ranked all the players in each format, right? Against each other. So I worked out what I thought was the best 24 all-format players of all time. I then put them in tiers, right? I then put them in a range of where they could go. And then I also gave them a final ranking number, of which, where I know you and I are going to come up with a 10, but my individual 10, I think, will change by the end of this episode once we start to talk these things out, right?
Nice.
How many players did you have on your long list, is my
15.
question. You had 15. Well, you really screwed over 9 people. All right, can I tell you the first group I looked at that didn't make it anywhere near the final list, but I think are all worthy of conversation?
Yeah, why not? I think that will be amazing because there might be a possibility that they might be in my top 10 because like I have not been able to deep dive the way you must have done because you're a champion at that. So
I was going to say because we have different neurodiversities. But okay, so I have Mitchell Starc, Trent Bolt, Kapil Dev, Virender Sehwag, Kumar Sangakkara, David Warner, and Chris Gayle, all in a category. I'm calling that tier 7, right? I can't get any of them particularly close to the top 10 in my list.
Yeah,
do you have any of them in your top 10?
Davey or David Warner and Chris Gayle were in my top 15, but not in my top 10.
Yeah, so here's my issue with Gayle. Wait, I do need to actually read some. I think he's weird because his white ball career for the West Indies is a plus, but it's not devastating.
Yes.
Right? He averages 38 in ODI cricket with a strike rate of 87, right? Which is good, but it's not what you think when you think of Chris Gayle, right? And his T20 numbers for the West Indies are 28 and 137, right? Again, okay, but that's not even a massive plus.
Exactly.
I think as a test player for the West Indies is where he's actually at his best, which is...
Yes, he was much better.
It's going to blow some people's minds. And then I would say this, he was the best T20 batter in the world. So when I've looked at T20, I have looked at international and domestic, only because I think they're two different... I think they both need to be looked at because otherwise you end up with Dawid Malan as your best T20 batter in the world. And that's just a bit silly, right? like man couldn't get off the IPL bench, right? So there's my issue with Gayle. And I still think he should be in the conversation, but like Rob Barron picked his 10 and I think he had Gayle in it. And I think a lot of people just assume Gayle was better for the West Indies than he was in white ball cricket. That, it's where it is there. With David Warner, I wonder if there isn't some recency bias here. And if we take away the sort of the last little struggling part of his career, you and I might both not have him a little bit higher. But overall, obviously, by the end of his career, it's impossible to talk about David Warner and not mention his away record in Test cricket, which is the reason he's not in my top 50 Test batters of all time, really. If you look at his record in one-day cricket, in Test cricket, he averages 45 with a strike rate of 70. In one-day cricket, he averages 45 with a strike rate of 97. And in T20 cricket, he averages 33 with a strike rate of 142. That's 37 and 140 when you look at all T20 cricket. It feels like he should be higher on this list, but when you look at those numbers, I don't know. He's probably, he might be top 10 in a couple of the formats, but he's not even in the top 50 in Test.
He's almost like the numbers are pretty similar to Rohit Sharma for that matter. No doubt, Rohit never had a elongated Test career, but almost the similar numbers. If we talk about white ball cricket, like Rohit is almost touching 50 in white ball ODIs. T20 record is pretty much similar to David Warner, and then he suffered a little bit on the Test front. So, but if you just take out that last 1 year of his in Test cricket, his numbers would have looked even better, to be honest. But
I think
we
the
cannot
difference
have
is
it
that
in-
Rohit doesn't have the big deep Test career though, does he? I mean, I didn't put Rohit in my top 24 only because of
Same here.
that. You know, the same way that I didn't really look at Joe Root because Joe Root doesn't play a lot of T20 cricket, right? In an era where T20 cricket's taken over. It's not that I don't think they could have done. I think both of them should be on this list, but they don't, right? Did you look at Kapil Dev at all?
Yes, he was not in my top 15, just outside of my top 15.
So I have him as a lower than Hadley in Test and ODI bowling, but higher in batting, but not quite enough to get to the sort of Richard Hadley level, I thought. Right? Richard Hadley's so much better as a bowler.
For me, he is. It might not land that well with.
Oh. Did we just lose Deepak? The internet has cancelled Deepak already. He hasn't even made a pick, and he's already out. I'll just go through some of the others that I had while we wait for Deepak's power to come back on by the look of it. Yeah, I really like Kapil Dev as a player, and I actually thought he'd be slightly higher. But it's hard, and like I'll explain later when I get to the Richard Hadley pick, which I think is also a really, really tricky pick as well. I've got Vrinder Sehwag here. I think Vrinder Sehwag is the most underrated ODI batter of all time. On Zulu numbers, which is the when we contemporize the numbers, he averaged 38 with a strike rate of 116. It's just ridiculous. Obviously a great Test batter as well. Also, I think if T20 exists during, and there's a few guys that you could throw into this, by the way. I think Gilchrist would get a bump as well for this. If T20 existed during their peak, I think they probably change a little bit again, right? I do think there is a change on those sorts of things. So yeah, certainly something that it is worth having a look at as well. From that point of view, but you can't, they didn't play peak. We get little bits of both of them, but they'll both beyond their peak at that stage. So, so that Sehwag, I thought might actually be slightly higher and hasn't quite worked out the way that I wanted to. Who else do we have here? And Kumar Sangakkara was the other one. So if you factor in his keeping as well, which I think is an important thing, and that will come back up again when we talk about Gilchrist, I think his ODI numbers still don't quite get him there. It's a good record overall. I think, have I got his Zulu numbers here? I tried to take everyone's numbers so I could have them in case I needed them. Where are so Sangakkara. So if we adjust him for error, he averages 47 with a strike rate of 86. Right, which is again, that's still very, very good numbers. But when you compare him to the other guys on this list, I think, I'm trying to think, there might be two players further up that have a lower strike rate than he does. And everyone else has a higher one. The wicket keeping I liked. So I was just going through the guys that we haven't got so far, Deepak, so you haven't missed anything. Just on Bolt and Stark, I found it really interesting. I'm just throwing this out there. I think Bolt is probably underrated in white ball cricket and slightly overrated in red ball cricket. He didn't have a great time when the wobble ball came, which is really, really interesting. And it's funny that him and Stark both struggled when the wobble ball came, but Stark's eventually been able to overcome it. And I think if you're doing just peaks, I think Stark is absolutely in the conversation. But I'm not sure overall. I think that I could get him much higher than I did. But don't give me any of your players in case you've got any of those in. So that's tier 7 Deepak, right? Gale, Warner, Sangakkara, Sehwag, Kapil Dev, Bolt, and Stark. All I'm going to ask is, have I named anyone in your top 10 yet?
No. Because with Kapil, the reason I was just about to say, like, for me, what he has done for India is similar to what, like, outside of the 1983 World Cup, I would say, the impact was similar to what I would say Saqib did for Bangladesh in a way that he was an outlier. But if you compare it with somebody like maybe Headley, maybe in Botham, just that I would say beyond a certain point, maybe because India as a whole was not a very great team in that era,
Yep.
that couldn't amplify because with Botham, England was good. Headley did something amazing with New Zealand. They became the third or the fourth best team of their era. With Kapil, it was just one man show for a significant period of time as far
It
as
was. I would say
yes,
this
like
though. I think Kapil Dev's a much better all-format cricketer than Botham.
yes.
Yeah, like if
Exactly,
you're talking
but
all formats, I don't even think
I'm
they're
just
close.
talking about the impact because of the team that he had to be a
Yeah,
part
I
of.
mean, to be fair to Hadley, I don't think Hadley's team was more strong than, and but that's the difference, isn't it? Hadley is a significant jump up, even though they're very similar cricketers. He's a significant jump up on the bowling specifically, not in the batting. He's not as good a batter as Kapil Dev, but he's such a significant jump up on the bowling. When you have a look at it in all conditions, really, Hadley is just an absolute freak. So yeah, I think that's fair. But you're right. It's funny that we had all these all rounders around, and only Imran Khan had a good team. Right? Everyone else had a very patchy team around them, which is probably we never got the most out of those three all-rounders because of that, right?
Exactly. And even with Imran Khan, they should have ruled the world cricket in that era, and that didn't happen. The
Well,
way it
yeah,
should have
but
happened.
what are you going to do if you're going up against West Indies as well, right? Like,
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think that's a very good one. Okay, so that's my first tier, right? Already, or my seventh tier, I should say. I've got a sixth tier here. All right, Jacques Kallis, Dale Steyn, Ricky Ponting, Adam Gilchrist, Richard Hadley. Are any of those in your top 10?
So I have.
Don't tell me who's in the top 10 yet, but are any of those in your top 10?
Could you just please repeat the names again?
Kallis, Steyn, Ponting, Gilchrist, Hadley.
Callis, Steyn, Ponting. Just one player.
Ooh. So, I think I went through Kallis really, really hard. And I think ultimately when you look at his one-day career, he was a plus ODI player. But the only thing that he's great at in ODI cricket is his batting average. Right? If you look at his bowling, he was basically a par bowler when it comes to economy and when it comes to econ. And when it comes to strike rate, he's obviously a slight negative as well. Test cricketer, no issues here. And I think, if we were looking at overall quality of cricketer, it would be a very different thing. Then you would bring even guys like Gavaskar and Root would come back into this. But if you're looking at all format and you have to judge them on what they've done in both formats, I don't think the Kallis quite gets over. As useful as he is in one-day cricket, I don't think he's a bad one-day cricketer. It's just that he's being compared to a bunch of great one-day cricketers here.
Exactly.
And it doesn't quite come out. So, a very, very a good ODI cricketer, but I don't think he quite gets that great thing. I was a bit surprised that Dale Steyn's numbers didn't pop in one-day cricket as much as I thought they would have. I didn't look at his T20 numbers as much, but maybe if you only because some of that sort of happens when he's already around. But yeah, I didn't have anything, but I could be persuaded on Dale Steyn to go a little bit higher in this list if you wanted him to.
I think till the time there were not two balls in ODI cricket, his death bowling was class apart because he used to get so much of reverse swing. The way he destroyed India in 2011 World Cup also in that match, like where India lost like 9 wickets for 29 runs. But his effectivity as a one-day bowler, I think, kind of diminished after 2013, especially when they started having those two balls. Because then, as we saw in that 2015 semi-finals also, where he couldn't finish it off for South Africa in that knockout match. So this is where I think that's again that certain recency bias also, because he played a lot of white ball cricket post that era also, and somehow his effectivity kind of diminished till the time reverse swing was there. He was a different beast altogether. Outswing with the new ball and that those in swinging reverse swinging balls with the old one, I think that also kind of diminished his ability as a white ball bowler, what I personally believe.
Yeah. I think just looking at his T20 numbers here, because I remember now, actually, I don't think I factored them in. I think I'd have him slightly higher. So I might still have him in this tier, but I might even have him in the tier higher based on the T20 numbers, because I'd forgotten that he played during... Because a lot of these guys, I disregarded their T20 if they weren't in their peak, right? Because it wasn't fair to them. But he actually did play T20 in his peak, and he was really, really good at T20 as well. So even though you might have had Malinga and Bumrah and Sunil Narayan and Rashid Khan at the same time, he's always in the conversation for one of the best T20 bowlers in the world. So I think I'll probably put him a little bit higher. Ponting I find really interesting, right? Because I've got him as a top 20 test batter, and he's probably a top 15 ODI batter. But I think most people would probably have him higher than that. I'm not sure you can make a real argument he's a top 10 batter in either, but maybe in ODI cricket, he gets into that frame a little bit more. He has his Zulu number, so this is adjusted for modern numbers. He would average 52 with a strike rate of 92, right? They're really, really good. Maybe that gets him into the top 10 quite comfortably without going through, where he goes there. I just didn't know if he'd done there's some really good cricketers ahead of him, is basically what I'm saying. I don't think there's an issue there. Gilchrist, I think his keeping helps him a lot. I think he's the greatest number 7 bat in Test cricket history. And if you look at his ODI stats, again, adjusted for modern era, he averages 40 with a strike rate of 112. And I think generally he's underrated as an opener in one-day cricket. I think people have kind of forgotten how good he was at that. So I would go there. And then the last player I have in this tier is Richard Hadlee, who is, I think he's probably in the top 10 test bowlers of all time. I couldn't work out where I wanted him in my ODI list of all time. His adjusted numbers look incredible, averaging 23 with an economy of 4.4. He gives great number 8 batting, but probably a cameo at number 7, right? And I couldn't work out if I was being unfair on his ODI bowling. But there's a player I have just ahead of him in the next tier, or two all-rounders in the next tier, that I just think, all things considered, are better all-format players than Hadlee. And that's where there's a bit of a logjam. I don't know how you felt. I felt there was like, I'm trying to work this out, maybe 9 automatic players. And then I had about 5 guys, of which I was like, I don't know which direction to go with these guys.
Like, I kind of ranked Gilchrist a lot higher because me and Saurabh on one of our lives few days back, Saurabh Somani, like we were discussing that how underrated Sehwag is as an ODI batter also, because the strong cases, like we have seen Rohit Sharma switching to a completely different beast mode in 2023, and post that also he's done that. And then the recent series has gone back to his old template, where if he fails, that doesn't make much of a case for the team, because he's not given you an explosive start and he has not been able to score the bulk of runs. Like with Sehwag, he, even though was not averaging in 40s or something, like 35, 36, but he used to like kind of give those blazing starts, and he would put a low price tag on his wicket. Something what like Abhishek is also now doing in T20. So something which was pretty revolutionary for that era. This is what I feel Gilchrist did for Australia, because the impact of his opening was massive, because he would used to push a lot of bowlers on the back foot in the power play itself, and that was something which was little, and considering the fact that he's a wicket keeper, that's a massive plus. And this is where I think people kind of underestimate that explosive opening start, which, to be honest, has not even evolved that much in ODIs. If you look at today's scenario also.
No. After like the sort of Roy Bairstow thing, that's the only time we've really kind of had it back. And now Rohit, obviously, of recent times. So, no, I think you're right. I did say when you dropped out that I had Sehwag as the most underrated ODI batter of all time, right? I really think that people don't understand it at all, what he did.
2 to 4 is one slot where our electricity, internet, everything is a little haywire, because there's the industrial load on the city at that time. So that's why. It becomes a pretty messy. So it happens every time once. Just this period.
I have foxes eating my cables out here, so let's not worry about Loads. We all have our issues. All right. So I basically I mean, look at the cricketers we're talking about here. Like ridiculous. Like Kapil Dev, Chris Gale, Sangakkara, Sehwag, Hadley, like Callis, incredible cricketers that haven't quite made the cut, which does tell you, I don't know how you felt, but I was surprised how hard it was to find the top 10 because, as I said before, I think maybe the top 14 is really, really strong. And I'd say that there's 14 players with a dead set ability to be able to go in. So I now have 2 more players that haven't made the cut that I'm gonna give you. And one of these really confuses me. And the other one, I think I'm happy with not making it. But I'll explain why. I didn't have Imran Khan in my top 10 all format players. I found him the hardest player to work out. I actually talked to Usman Samiuddin, who's just written a great article about him sort of in public life at the moment. It's worth finding if you can online. But he's a top 5 test player ever, right? Like just absolutely a goat, right? A bit like Callis. But his ODI record, Deepak, is confusing, right?
Exactly.
He's got a bowling average of these are, as I said, bird numbers. So these are contextual numbers. So his numbers, but modified so they make sense in modern ODI cricket. So we can compare all these players. Varun came up with this so we could work this out. His bird numbers are 28 and 5.2. So he's a strike bowler who goes for more runs than you would expect. But he's not. If you're averaging 28, you're not a great strike bowler.
Strike bowler. Yes.
Yeah. Then you've got his batting, and this is wild. His Zulu numbers in batting are an average of 40 and a strike rate of 84. I think any team in the history of mankind would be like, wait a minute, we get a guy who can average 28 with the ball and can average 40 with the bat and maybe doesn't have a great strike rate, but is not, is still ticking the ball out. Would you take that player? The same with Callis. You take Imran and Callis as ODI players. But are they great ODI players or are they good and very good ODI players?
Very good,
right?
Yes. Will they be able to impact a match, a series? That's where even I also got confused because Imran post 1987, especially in white ball cricket, was more of a batter than what he actually.
Yeah, he was kind of done as a bowler, wasn't he? By that point,
I think his test average also was around 50 in that era.
Yeah,
E51 or something.
I mean,
like that
he's so good. It's just so when I talked to Usman was like, if you look at his captaincy, and I haven't really factored captaincy into this. He said if you look at his captaincy, you probably put him in the top 10. But when I showed Usman the top 10, he was also like, I don't know how we fit him in, right? So I think that's why I've got him so close to the top 10. And I don't know, like I don't even know if he's actually better than Hadley as all format cricketer. Right? He might be, but only because if you think about it in one-day cricket, Hadley's batting in one-day cricket is probably more handy than Imran's, right? Because yes, you get an average of 40, but that's only if you need someone to tick it over. Whereas actually having a number 7 or a number 8 who can come in and make 20 off 15 the way that Hadley could regularly, probably maybe a better option.
Right? I think it's the same problem that India is having with Jadeja, I guess. I'm like not going to compare Imran with Jadeja, but exactly like he is not giving you those big runs, and plus then if he averages around 30 and with a strike rate of like 85, 86.
They both need to bat too high, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
They actually need to be. You've mentioned Jadeja. Dhananjaya De Silva has been dropped from the Sri Lankan side, right? Because they don't know how to fit him into their one-day lineup because he really needs to bat high, get himself in, and then rotate the strike for a while. But you can find better players who can do that. But those players can't bowl, right?
Exactly.
So, and I think that's the same with Imran and Jadeja. It's not that they are not plus ODI players, because I think they all are. It's that it's a bit more confusing, I think, when you come down to it. All right. So if that's a confusing player, here's the player I currently do not have in my top 10. Shawn Pollock.
I think I have him.
I thought you might.
Yes, I have him in my top 10.
I changed Shawn Pollock 100 times. I've had him in, I had him out. I had him as high as 6th at one stage. Here's the thing. Ultimately, I moved him down because I just don't know how I feel about him. I think as a bowler, he's about 95% as good as Glenn McGrath in a similar role, right?
I think this is that also. We
But
discussed
the
that recently.
5% of Glenn McGrath is the difference between being a very good, like a great player, and being maybe the greatest of all time.
But I personally feel that his ODI batting is pretty underrated. I remember so
Yep.
many matches where he would have, like where South Africa, like 98, 99, that era, where they could have lost the match, but just he was the one who just pulled them over the line. So I think Klusner gets more limelight for that kind of a role, but Pollock was pretty underrated in that particular
I th-
role, I guess so.
He averages what 25, 26 for the bat in ODI cricket, I think, with a really healthy strike rate. Not as high as I thought it was going to be though, but a very healthy strike rate. And then in Test cricket, averages over 30 with the bat, right?
30. Yes.
I still don't know. I think he could have been a number 7, but I think he's more like. Is his batting better than Kapil Dev's? It's probably a similar kind of player to Kapil Dev with the batting. He's a better Test bowler and a better ODI bowler, I think, than Kapil Dev. Here's the thing, though. He was in a lot of limited overs games, and he didn't actually like important one-day games, World Cups, and everything. And he doesn't have the impact that McGrath has, and McGrath can't bat, right? Like McGrath wins games for Australia over and over again when you look at World Cups against big teams and knockouts and everything. I still think you could convince me to have Pollock in the top 10. It's just that the top 10 is stacked.
Exactly.
Right.
I think this is where I think 99 World Cup also changes the whole equation, because Pollock had a good semi-finals also. He had a very good semi-finals. But unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be enough. So he could have done a bit with the bat also. He got out at a very critical
They put him in ahead of Klusner.
Yes. Klusner batted at 8, I guess, in that match.
Which again tells you how much they rated his batting. I'm not like having a go at that, but because he could bat. I mean, the thing with him is, I think in another side, he probably bats higher, right? And maybe we have an even different view of him. Maybe it's higher view, maybe it's lower view. I don't know, because his batting average is probably higher than it should be because he batted so low. He had so many not outs, but he was a good bat, and what he could have done for another side. Here's my ultimate thing: is that when it comes to Pollock and Kallis as one-day cricketers, you had two of the greatest all-rounders of all time in your team, and they routinely, if you look at Kallis, he was part of the reason that South Africa lost those games because he was batting too slow. If you look at Pollock, as good as he was, he didn't do what McGrath would do, right? He didn't do what Bumrah would do. He didn't do what Joel Garner would do, which is just win games. Oh, like key games when they needed to win them, right? Exactly. And so I don't know if I'm being harsh on him or not, but I don't have him in. But we'll talk about him more when he comes up with you, because I do, if that's your list. Raksha, you can bring up the top 10. So we're just going to take a pick each here, right? So this could be complete. This is wildcatting at this point, right? Because Deepak could come up with anything. Am I blue or you blue? I can't remember which one of us is blue.
I'm blue.
You're blue. So you have the 10th pick.
Yes.
So the 10th pick in the all format draft in cricket. And I just want to give a couple of parameters that we've done here. One is, as I said before, if a player didn't play T20 cricket in their peak, I haven't really factored it in all that much, right? That's me personally. But also we set a very, very important thing here, which is this is only cricketers from 1975 onwards. So Sobers and Bradman and Trumper, all of which would have had claims to be in these sorts of things. Not to mention, someone like Keith Miller and Leary Constantine or whoever else you want. We've gone from 1975 onwards, so basically from the birth of the ODI era onwards, so that we have players who have played in their peak in ODI cricket and Test cricket, and then of course we then have T20 cricket to factor in, which I think in some cases probably makes it harder for some of the modern players, I think, which is why I've tried to be a bit more forgiving on a couple of the modern players, just because to be good in 3 formats is a whole different universe, right? Like it really is. But all I'm doing here is allowing Deepak to change his mind, because the 10th best all format player of all time, according to Deepak Goyal, is... Has he paused? Oh my God! Just for a minute, I thought you'd lost your internet again.
No. My list is MS. I had him on.
Okay,
10th.
I do not have MS in my top 24 players.
So MS
That's
because
wild.
I was a little confused about him just because of the impact that he has won so many trophies in almost all formats and also in like Test cricket. Again, as you said, I think I gave a little more value to the captaincy factor. So that's
Okay.
the only
Fair.
reason. Because I was a little confused because uh, I couldn't. Because again, like some of the players in the 80s or 70s, I think I'm not that well versed with. So I've not seen them play that much.
Yeah.
So I might have skipped on that. MS, just because in ODIs, I think that he's a lot underrated because he has, like, for example, if we talk about the Dharamshala innings in 2017, where India was like 30 for 8 or something, and he still managed to pull them out of trouble in that. And then match against Pakistan in Chennai, where he scored that 100. So he had, even though he was not a very conventional batter, but he had the technique to even survive difficult spells. This is where I think, and with his T20 batting, I think I've given weightage to his IPL heroics also. So, like what he has been able to do outside of, because the evolution of international cricket has happened a lot in last 5 years, 6 years, or I would say 7 years, where MS was not in his peak and he was not even the part of the Indian setup also. So that's why I was a little confused about him.
So I'm just doing this on the fly because I didn't even have him in my top 24. So I love that you've wildcatted to begin with. You've just planked a random name. I have him as a 10 out of 10 for ODI cricket, right? Off the top of my head. I think I have him as an 8 in Test cricket. And I don't mean as in like I'm comparing him to these players, right? I think I have him as an 8 in Test cricket. And then I have him as what? A 9.25 maybe in T20 cricket.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
where I gave him little higher on T20 cricket for what he
What
has
did
done.
you give him?
9.7 or something because of the impact that he has had globally. Because two of the biggest tournaments, World Cup, he already won in 2007, was still relevant, even though, again, like his captaincy kind of overshadowed my thought process here. And in IPL, he was so relevant to force for such a long period of time. One of the most competitive tournaments as far as T20 is concerned globally. And it was one point of time, it was like CSK versus any other team. So that's
Yeah.
what I said.
But so you're putting the captaincy in. I don't think I can. I don't know how I feel about. I mean, the captaincy is great. Don't get me wrong. But then maybe Imran is he better than Imran Khan then, who's also won a bunch of trophies with Pakistan and then won the World Cup as well. That's I think that's a really good conversation to have. I'm not sure I have a great answer for
The
that.
amount of cricket that he has played, longevity, keeping all that in mind, still being relevant for almost 2 decades. That's the thing, because that's what I said. I was, after 7 or 8, I was pretty much exhausted. Like, where should I put other players and all? Because
Yeah, no,
there's so many.
yeah. So I went the other way. I work backwards a little bit more than you do.
Okay.
I'm just having a look now. I've got him ranked at where would I? I'm just putting my numbers together. So not with him and Imran. I would still have him ranked behind Imran, but I would have him probably ranked ahead of Hadley. So he probably should have been on my overall list. So that's a miss from me. But I still can't get him in the top 10. But MS Dhoni's number 10.
And what is your number 10?
My number
Who's
10
your number 10?
was Wasim Akram.
So he's little higher for me.
Yeah, I think I'm lower on Wasim Akram than most people in this list. Not that I'm lower on Wasim Akram. I think he's great. But I don't, yeah, I think that I don't, yeah, I think I just think the other 9 are so strong ahead of him. Again, it's not that I don't think Wasim Akram's great, but I think when you go through this list, you'll understand why I'm a little bit lower on him. All right, do you want me to give you my number 9?
Yeah, please.
My number 9 is Shane Warne.
Okay, so he's not in my top 10. So he was just
15?
outside of my, just out of my top 10.
Here's the issue I have, right? I'm kind of with you at a certain point, right? That there were times when I was like, should Shane Warne be in the top 10? But then I looked at it and I was like, he is definitely in the top 10 test bowlers of all time, right?
No doubt about it.
he's also in the top 10 ODI bowlers of all time.
Yes.
So at that stage, you know, like we just talked about Wasim Akram. I don't think Wasim Akram's in the top 10 test bowlers of all time, right?
Like, this is where, Jarrod, I am a little confused because he won man of the match every sixth match. Like, only Head is better than him in that. So, like, whenever he peaked, he had a major impact and won the match for Pakistan. So, like, I think in 112 test matches, he has like what? Or 104 test matches, he has like 17 man of the matches. So,
Yeah, he was
like,
incredible. But
yes.
I don't think if you're going through. Also, as you know, I don't care about man of the match awards at all because I just think people just go for the flashiest player, and he was a flashy player, and Head's a flashy player, right? I think basically all rounders and flashy players win more man of the match awards than anyone else, right? And so you do remember them.
And
How much? Can I ask you a question? How much better of a batter do you think Wasim Akram is than Shane Warne? 10%?
Not much, I would say, because Shane again is a pretty underrated batter. He could have maximized his batting a lot more. He just didn't get that much of a chance. Like for me, because 98 is the time where I actually started watching cricket, where I could understand what exactly is happening. So it was not the time where Shane Warne was peaking at that time, and 99 series against India, where like Wasim was just making the ball talk, and that Asian Test Championship also, where he just knew, like we took couple of hat tricks also. So it's just like when I started understanding cricket, what exactly it is all about, I've seen the peak of the guy. I clearly remember what he did to Sachin. I think in Sharjah it was. He bowled him with a beautiful slower delivery, and Sachin just played all over it, and it was a beautiful setup.
But you
and that
said
too in the power play.
99. That's also when Shane Warne won a World Cup for Australia.
After that, because.
But you know what I mean? Like
yes.
that, and you just said that wasn't even peak Warne, and he still helped Australia win a World Cup. He came he'd been dropped from the Test team because of injuries, right?
Yes.
Well, not injuries, but not recovering from it properly.
Because he was dropped against West Indies, I guess, in that series where Lara went berserk. And he had
completely lost his confidence. He was, you know, there's some great stuff out there, like, you know, Adam Gilchrist and Damien Fleming talking about just how low Shane Warne was.
Yes.
And then he wins a World Cup in England when that entire World Cup is dominated by swing bowlers. Right, and he completely changes the games against South Africa, and then in the final he takes 4 wickets. I still think McGrath probably wins that game with the early wickets, right? But it's Warne that cements that game, right? My big question with Warne is that he ends up with a 10-year one-day career, but he retired really young from one-day cricket, right? But if he keeps playing, they probably win in 2007 with him anyway.
Exactly.
And he wins 2 World Cups. And also, they made the final of the '96 World Cup with him as well, right?
And he won
2003
from nowhere.
Played.
Yes, and in '96 also semi-finals, he just won it single-handedly for them. Like he just won it from nowhere, to be honest.
So that's where I'm confused with these two players, right? I think. I looked at fielding a little bit as well. Shane Warne has a better role in the field than Wasim Akram, even though Wasim Akram was a better athlete, and but Wasim Akram could be a bit of a dozy fielder when he needed to be, whereas Shane Warne was, especially in Test cricket, was really. I don't think there's much between them. I've got these guys ranked almost identically, but yeah, I've gone with Warne at number 9. Anyway, let's go on to our number 8.
So I will share my number 9 also. So my number 9 was Adam Gilchrist.
Okay, yeah. I don't think we're that far apart on Adam Gilchrist. I just struggled to push him all the way in. I think he's one of those guys that if T20 cricket exists when he's, you know, in his peak, I probably would have him where you have him.
That's where I feel that why he's important, because he won an IPL outside of his peak and still was relevant for Punjab also, and way outside of his peak, because in 2007 when he retired, he said that he dropped 1 catch and he felt that is it, and then he retired, right? And even after that, he was relevant, because what he did against Delhi in that semi-finals, where he took apart, I think, Dirk Nennis. I think he scored 4 boundaries of him in 1 over, I guess, 2009, and still was able to make an impact and win matches for his team, and then ultimately won the trophy.
But he averages 27 with a strike rate of 140 in T20 cricket, right? And I think if he was, his peak would have been what, 32, 33 with a strike rate of 155, 160, right? So you're right, he was still good enough, but I didn't want to, if I'm judging him on his T20 career, even though you've mentioned the peaks, there's a lot of troughs in there as well. So I didn't want to bring him back down. I think there's a very interesting argument for, like, in one-day cricket specifically, of whether you want Dhoni or whether you want Gilchrist, right? And it might just depend on how you put the side together, if that makes sense. But I think there's a really good argument between the two of them for that. And I don't think all casual fans would see it that way. I think they have... Oh. We lost him? Now he's just...
No, I've
been... I can't see him.
I don't know why I went.
I could hear you breathing. I think probably I still have Dhoni ahead of him. But if you look at team construction, it might make more sense in certain situations to use Gilchrist ahead of Dhoni, right? But... point being, and you've also got the Joss Butler conversation as well, right?
Yes.
But the point being, I think all things considered, I think most people would have Gilchrist in this. I just don't quite get him there. Partly because, as great as a player as he was in Test cricket, there's a lot of other incredible players. And also, if you're looking at wicket keeping, the one thing that would bump Dhoni up a little bit further for me is the skill specifically up at the stumps. And there he's dominant. But you might argue that because Gilchrist actually dived for balls, he was better back. Even if he wasn't as good a wicketkeeper, he was more likely to take catches. I think it's confusing. Anyway, so you had him at number 9. You're number 8, sir.
Wasim Akram, I already mentioned. So,
okay, we'll put him at number 8.
Because, as I said, like, for me, I might be having a bias being a left-hander myself, but for me, he was a magician. Like, in 99 was completely mesmerized with what he did. I have mentioned that in the group also, like what he did to Rahul Dravid in that Chennai Test match. Bowled an in-dipper, plum LBW, not given. Then that away going cutter, Dravid had no answer to it. Like, he was just and what he did to Sri Lanka post that, like they allowed them to get that bonus point, and then he just ran through them as if he was just waiting for them to cross the 100 over mark. And he could just do silly things with the old ball. But yes, I think if he would have won that World Cup finals in 99, but then he did that in 92. His spell changed that World Cup in 92.
Oh, I mean, I don't really have a huge problem with him as a one-day bowler. I think he's probably top 5, top 10 without any question. I've got him here as listed as a top 7 ODI bowler. And I haven't made a full list. I'm just guessing that he's going to be top 7. He might even be top 4, top 5, top 3, right? The issue I have with him overall is that I think he's a great test bowler, but I'm not sure he's quite at the level of some of the other guys on this list, right? I think there are better test bowlers on this list. And so Shawn Pollock actually has better numbers than Wasim Akram, right? Having watched both of them play, the reason I have Akram ahead of Shawn Pollock is largely because of the fact that Wasim Akram was great with the new ball, with the old ball, and at the death. And I think Shawn Pollock was a very good new ball bowler, but he had to bowl a lot of his ball overs with the new ball, especially once his back got sore, right? And he was a fine death bowler, but you wouldn't really throw the ball to Shawn Pollock in the middle overs and expect him to change a game. Whereas whether it would be test cricket or one-day cricket, Wasim Akram was a threat every time he had the ball in his hand.
Exactly.
And that's why I've gone for him over him. But having said that, I just think if you think that Shane Warne is a top 10 ODI and test bowler of all time, and you don't have Wasim Akram listed as that, again, I've got them next to each other. So it's not as if I don't think both of them aren't great. I didn't know how to separate them.
And to be honest, like even if you talk about his Sena records, like I think earlier, like before he became diabetic in 96, and that massively affected his run-up and everything, his effectivity, especially in Australia, kind of tapered off, because in 95, when he went to Australia, he was a different beast altogether. He didn't get those many wickets maybe, but he was still making the ball talk and was still making it horrible for the openers. I've listened to the interviews of Michael Slater, Taylor, and like how difficult it was to face the new ball from Wasim Akram. But then maybe after 96, yes, he was good, but he was not the same devastating best, especially in Sena countries where like you couldn't bring in the reverse swing straight away into picture. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I said it's very difficult to pick
I've
top
got a
10.
fascinating one for you on Shawn Pollock. I didn't want to get too deep into this because this would be like, not if I was writing a book, but if I was doing a proper feature. Shawn Pollock didn't actually do particularly well in Australia. And that was the best batting lineup he went up against. Whereas if you look at Wazam Akram, he plays 9 tests in Australia and he has a bowling average of 24 in those games. So
And
even
he
as
could have
you
won
said,
that Hobart Test match also in '99.
Exactly.
Like,
right? And it's the same in one-day cricket. He plays 64 games. It's ridiculous. He played 64 games of one-day cricket in Australia. How much one-day cricket was played in Australia in those days? He played 64 games in Australia. He played 67 in Pakistan. Right? He was in Australia that much, and he averaged in Australia in one-day games a bowling average of 25 with an economy of 3.8. So in Australia specifically, which was the best team that him and Pollock went up against, I thought Wazam Akram was better, which is another reason that I had him slightly higher. But yeah, just absolutely, both of those players are incredible. I'm happy with Akram at 8 and Warren at 9. You could go either direction, I think, with those two guys. I had them in the exact same tier right next to each other.
and your 8 was Shane Warne.
My 8 was Virat Kohli.
Oh, so he's a lot higher for me.
I
but
knew
yeah,
he would be a lot higher for you.
again,
I think he'd be
but
a lot higher for most people. When we get to Virat Kohli, we will discuss why he is where he is for me. But okay, Wazam Akram is your number 8. So it's my number 7, right?
Yes.
My number 7, I think, is going to stuff up your list completely. Joel Garner.
Again, I didn't have him in my top 10 because, as I said, I've not seen him much. So I've just seen few highlights, and also it was difficult for me.
Can I give you the numbers then?
Yeah, please.
He has the 3rd best test bowling average of all time. He has the best ODI bowling average of all time. He has probably, we don't have stats for this, but he would have the best true economy. Like, if we could go back and look at it, he would have the best true economy of all time. I have no doubt of that. He has the 2nd best economy on the bird stats. So when we update the stats to modern times, he was basically unplayable in both formats, right? I don't know how you don't get him in your top 10 with the 3rd best test bowling average and the best ODI bowling average.
Yeah, because I just don't have that much of a memory of him. I've seen his stats, but to put a context to that, I think you have to live that era also, because then you would be able to understand.
I didn't live that
how
era. I do. I just go back and look at stuff. There's heaps of footage of him online. The great spell is the is it the 79 World Cup where England are like a bit. He does what Akram does, except I think he takes like twice as many wickets. He just comes on in the middle overs when England's like hanging around, and you think, "Ooh, maybe England," and he just goes, "No, no, 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 the game's over." Right? He doesn't like take 2 wickets in an over. I think he takes 4 or 5. Right? Not in an over, but over maybe whatever his spell is. And it's just, the game is over, Deepak. Right? And I don't know how you can end up in ODI cricket with a bowling average of 18. I just don't know how you do that.
When I was evaluating him, I kept him really high as an ODI bowler. But as a test bowler, the only thing is because the kind of attacks he always had with him to accompany. So that's why I was not able to judge him in an isolation.
Can I give you a better thing on his test bowling? He did most of his work from first change. He didn't even get the new ball. How do you end up averaging the 3rd best average of all time without getting the new ball? So you're right. I think you have to factor in. I think you always have to factor that in, right? Of when it comes to Garner and Warne, I think with both of those guys, you have to factor in that there was already damage done by the time they usually get the ball.
This is where, Jarrod, I really wanted to understand. By the time they come in, is it the case the best batters are already gone? Which in most of the case.
So I don't think it is, because if you go back through the amount of times that there were stories of Garner just bringing the game back, and we obviously know that Warne did the same thing. I think we have enough anecdotal evidence that if they were like Richard Hadley or Murali, they still would have been absolute greats if they were on their own, right? There's so much anecdotal evidence of that. And as I said, there's no other bowler in the history of the game that has ever been anywhere near as good as Garner at first change, right? Like, so Brett Lee was a first change bowler for Australia, and we both have him as a very, very good bowler. And what does he average? 28, 29 in Test cricket?
30, I guess.
And Garner averages 21?
Yes. Brett
Right?
Lee's, I think, 30 in Test cricket, if I remember.
It might be
correctly.
30, yeah.
No, I don't know the
It's high
true-
20s anyway, yeah.
Yes.
Right? So, again, you know, Morne Morkel, he averages a lot more than Joel Garner does, and probably did it on a lot more spicy wickets as well. So I just think that when it comes down to it, I don't know how you overlook Garner for a list like this. But I didn't think you'd have him, and I knew that I would have him. There's part of me that wanted to have him higher, but I tell you what, for me, from here on in, this list gets like it's really packed from here on in. What's your number 6?
So at number 7, I can also share. I had Shawn Pollock.
You had Shawn Pollock that high. So as I said, I had him as high as 6th at one stage, and I did move him down. So I don't know whether I'll ever I don't know where I'll end up with Shawn Pollock.
Yeah, so he was my number 7. So number 6, I have AB de Villiers.
I had AB de Villiers at number 5.
So you're pretty close.
Yeah, I think he's the greatest T20 batter of all time. I think he's solidly in the top.
His numbers for South Africa are not that great. This is where I got confused.
Yeah, I factored those in as well. I think he's higher up the list if he had better international numbers. But I still think he's the greatest T20 batter I've ever seen play the game. I think he's top 4 in ODI batting of all time, and I think you make the claim he's as high as 2nd if you want to go, you know, depending on if you're a strike rate person. And I have him as, I think, top 25 in Test match batting as well. Plus, he was a great fielder and good wicket keep.
Yes. For me, like, the only reason he's not in my top 5 was just that factor, because he's not been able to win the key matches for South Africa in totality. Like, I think he definitely had a major impact for RCB. But if you look at an ODI as an ODI batter, or as a white ball batter for that matter, this is where I felt that somebody like Virat, who was won, I would say, the key matches for India, that particular part on AB's front is missing. So that's the only reason I had him at number 6.
I didn't have them massively apart. I mean, I have one at 5 and one at 8. Like, I think you could, again, a lot of these players, I'll talk about later, like the Rangers I've got everyone in as well. I think you can make pretty good arguments for some of these guys to move around quite a bit. I think with AB, I'm kind of with you. I think I probably have AB towards the top end of the range, right? Whereas I think you could certainly change this around a little bit with everyone else. But I did have AB's range slightly higher than Kohli's anyway. But yeah, so that was your 6th
What is
pick.
your number 6?
So my 6th pick is Jasper Bumrah.
Oh, so he's a little higher for me.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting now.
Okay, so you've already taken my number 5, so I'm happy to put Jasper Bumrah in at number 5 because I can't put AB de Villiers in, and we do have to work out, and then you'll probably have Kohli soon, so I don't need to. I can do Kohli here, or I can do Bumrah. You tell me who you want me to pick at number 5.
I think it can be. I think Jasprit at number 5 makes a lot of sense.
Okay, Jasper Bumrah at number 5. Jasper Bumrah, I think by the end of his career, he has a genuine chance to be top 10 in ODI Test and T20, right? And maybe top 5 in quite a few, and maybe number 1 in some, right? His one-day numbers weren't as good as I thought when I looked at them compared to the other great ODI bowlers on the Bird Stats, but they're still great. But I thought he'd be even higher in one-day cricket. He hasn't finished his career yet, right? And he could have, his numbers are very similar to Waqar Younis, although he's managed to do it for longer in his career so far. And Waqar Younis had a bit of a tail on the end of his career, right? And Waqar Younis, we haven't even mentioned yet. And maybe you could have almost fit Waqar Younis into the, I mean, he should probably be in these discussions as well. He should have been in my 24 or 26 now with Dhoni. But I don't think he was going to make the top 10 in the end anyway. But yeah, so Jasper Bumrah, I think, has a genuine case to be top 10 in all those. And a bit the same that I looked at with Garner. That's why Garner's in the list. And I think that's why Bumrah should be in the list as well. And also, as I was saying before, when it comes to AB, Bumrah and Kohli, I think you have to respect the fact that they've done it in 3 formats. Right?
Exactly. And they've done that.
There
So
is
it's
an
not-
extra
yeah.
format, right? Like, that,
Exactly.
and it's more complicated and everything else. I'm not saying that Wasam Akram wouldn't have been great in T20 cricket, or Shane Warne wouldn't have been great in T20 cricket, right? But yeah, I think you have to do that. So that's fair.
And with Shane Warne also, again, he won the IPL outside of his peak.
Oh yeah.
So-
No, exactly. I mean, I if you can put those in, and again, that's very fine. But my point is, I think that if I was just looking at the pure numbers at the moment, I might have Bumrah a little bit lower, just because he hasn't finished his career and we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years, right? But based on the fact, I was happy to put him back up high again, just based on the fact that he's already top 10 in 3 formats. Like if he decides to retire from international cricket tomorrow, I'm still happy to have him this high.
Makes sense. Makes total sense. So number 4 for me is Virat Kohli.
Hey!
As I mentioned.
All right. Do you want me to explain my Virat Kohli reasoning here?
Yeah, why not? And what was your number 4 also? I really wanted to know that also.
We'll get back to my number 4 because we could still. Oh my God! One of the 4 greatest all format players of all time is going to miss out on this side. I've just realized. My God! Remember, that's Deepak's fault. Okay. I have Kohli. As a top 25 Test batter of all time. I have him as top 4 ODI batter of all time. I have him as a top 3 T20 international batter of all time. You might even have him higher than that. But I have him top 10-ish when it comes to T20 cricket. I don't think he's as high when you look at his overall numbers in T20 cricket. Purely on international numbers, I have absolutely no issue. But I don't think he's been as good over a long period of time domestically in T20 cricket when you compare him with everyone else's careers. But yeah, that's why I had him a little bit lower. How do you compare that with Joel Garner, who is maybe top 10 in both, right? And number 1 in both, right? That's the only issue I have with Kohli, is that it's a little bit more confusing. But as I said before, because there's 3 formats, or in his case, almost 4, and with De Villiers and Bumrah, we actually are looking at 4 formats, really, right? In some ways, the way that we're putting this together, because we are factoring in top-level T20 cricket as well. I didn't want Kohli to be too low. I wanted him to be high.
Why he's little higher also for what impact he brought to Indian cricket in terms of literally everything. The fitness standards went up, fast bowlers started hunting in pairs, and something which was just never heard of. Like, to be honest, like Dhoni had the same pace attack, what like Virat had. Like, apart from just with Bumrah, I would say. Like, Shami was there, Ishan was there, Boogie was there.
I think Virat had Dhoni's bowling attack when it was good. And I think Dhoni had the same bowling attack before some of those players.
They were grooming, yes, you can say that.
But because you can't say they had the same Ishant Sharma, right? One of them had one who bowled 1.5 meters fucking shorter and had no idea what he was doing. The other one had a really smart international bowler, right?
Yes.
Like, I think you have to be honest there. But no, I see what you're saying.
I totally agree.
Kohli did some great things with that. As I said, I haven't factored in leadership at all.
Yeah, because
I do like the fitness angle, though.
Yes, because of the all format, it was for me like what all they actually brought to cricket in general, be it the tactics, be it the improvisation, be it the, as I said, fitness, because he changed Indian cricket's whole perspective towards fitness. Like,
I think I probably more focused on batting and field. Like, if you're a bowler, I probably focus more on batting and fielding. So, for instance, if you look at Garner, we also know that Garner was a great gully fielder, right? And so most fast bowlers give you a 0 on fielding, right? Exactly. Or they give you outfielding. Garner gave you a big arm at times in his career, and also then a genuine catching fielder. But I didn't look at the more emotional thing that you're talking about, and I didn't look at leadership only because I don't know how to factor in leadership. It's a tough one to be able to do. But you are right. I mean, if you're thinking about it from that perspective, I think Kohli gets certainly gets a bump when it comes to the professionalism of how Indian cricket has gone forward.
So, who was your number 4 then?
My number 4 was Murali, who I now don't think you have on your list. I don't think he's in your top 10, is he?
He's not in my top 10.
So you didn't have a spinner in your top 10?
To be honest, like, I was thinking of having Murli in my top 10, but uh, I was a little worried about his impact outside of Asia. Like what no offenses, because he won one test match in Sri Lanka, in England, where he took 16 wickets, and that Sri Lanka never got the chance to play in Sena countries that regularly in his era. There used to be like either two test match series, something of that sort. So we couldn't see the full range of him when he traveled abroad. So that's the only reason I couldn't and again, like coming to India also, he couldn't make that much of an impact as far as test cricket is concerned. He couldn't win a series for Sri Lanka and India. So these factors were like, if you look at the overall records, he's been massive.
Can I just say,
but-
this is just test cricket. So obviously Australia, he has lots of issues. So he didn't do very well there. As you said, in India, he averages 45, which I think is fair. In England, he averages 19. In New Zealand, he averaged 19. In South Africa, he averaged 26. In Pakistan, he averages 25. In Sri Lanka, he averages 20. In the West Indies, he averaged 23. That's just in test cricket. Those numbers
totally
hold
agree,
up, dude.
But I don't know, like how many, because they never had a 5 test match series or something of that sort.
No,
So-
but that also means that when he was dominating batters, he never had the ability to, dominate batters in like consistently. Like when he was on top of someone, there was nothing that player could do, right? A bit like Warne. And Warne had the ability to play against those guys 4 and 5 times, and he didn't. So I think I know people like to bring that up a lot, but I think that does go both ways. His record, by the way, his one-day record in India is really good. 28 average at 4 economy. So he did bring it back in one-day cricket. I'm just having a look everywhere else. Yeah, he was great in New Zealand, Pakistan, South Africa, surprisingly, the West Indies, and he played the good West Indies and the bad West Indies, so it's a bit trickier there. Again, in Australia, even in one-day cricket, it's okay. I mean, no, look, it's fine. He averaged 30 in Australia in one-day cricket at 4.6. I don't think there's, and playing 41 ODIs in Australia, I don't think many off-spinners ever would have been able to do that.
If you look at Murli in big matches for that matter, 96 World Cup, even though Sri Lanka won that World Cup, I don't think so he was that much of an impact. He really bowled economically, but he didn't run through the sides as such. In 2023 also semi-finals, Arvinde De Silva had a bigger impact than him with the ball, if I remember correctly. I'm not because he got out Gilchrist, I think, in that semi-finals. And then if you look at 2007 also, 11 also, 11 finals, 7 finals, and also 2009 finals. So it's just about, I don't have any serious memories of him making
Okay.
an impact.
Can I give you his World Cup numbers in one-day cricket?
Yeah.
40 matches, 68 wickets at 19.
But like, how many of them actually turned up in the big matches? So that's just like the way,
I'm
like
trying to
you
see
said,
if I
like
can
Warne,
find the final.
like Warne would look pretty average in the tournament, but he would just turn up on the big day. So that's the reason I think he almost gets into the top 10, because this is where, again, I still, as a pure bowler, if anybody would want me to pick all-time greatest spinner, I will have Murli over Warne, to be honest. Like this, I think I've said it multiple times in my lives also. But in totality, if I want to be in my top 10 list, he's just outside of my top 10 list, yes. I was a little confused on that.
I must admit, I found Warne and Murali quite confusing here, and I eventually went with both. I don't know what all these mean. I'm just bringing up Murali's record in finals. He played 9 finals of various kinds in World Cup cricket. In those, he averaged... Oh, wait, is this World Cup cricket? Yeah, World Cup cricket. In those, he averaged 28. He took... In 2007, he took 4 wickets against New Zealand. But he went at economies of... Like, his worst game in a World Cup semi-final is probably against the best World Cup team of all time. Oh, no, so this would be World Cup final. So his worst game would be against the Australian 2007 team, where he went at 6 runs and over. He went at 6 runs and over against England in 2011, but took 2 wickets. Then against New Zealand in that tournament, yeah, 2011 is quite late for him. I think his numbers in the finals are fine, mate. Like, I get what you, I get, I'm not going to go through it now and have a look at Warne's in comparison. I think we just remember it because Australia played in more finals, right? Like, there's a bump on, you have to be honest here and say that one of the reasons Australia played in so many finals was because McGrath and Warne were so great, right?
Exactly.
But also that gave them, because they were both existed, it gave them both more chances to play in more finals and be remembered. I mean, I think
Kohli, for that matter, played 96 finals, semi-finals. Then he played 2003 semi-finals. Then he played 2007 semi-finals, finals. Then he played 2009 T20 finals also, if I remember correctly. So then he played 2011
I didn't look at his
quarter.
T20 numbers as much on this. I don't. Let me just quickly have a look. I suppose he overlaps with T20 cricket a little bit. Let's have a look. I mean, his T20 numbers are pretty good as well, don't they? And he was, remember, for a long period of time there, Sri Lanka were the best T20 team over a 5-year period, even if they didn't quite have the success in the major tournament.
Exactly.
And he
Pakistan and Sri Lanka, they were ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
as
but
far
he
as
was
T20
kind of the
cricket is
machine of that, right? I think he's a top 5 Test bowler of all time and a top 5 ODI bowler of all time. And I think if you do that, I don't know how you don't have him in your top 10. That's the question I have for you.
Yes.
Right? I'm not saying you're wrong, because as I said, I found Murali and Warne really confusing in this.
Because I think just the trophies and the big matches, all those things kind of had a bias on that. Because again, because apart from the stats, I was also kind of bringing in my personal element to it, like how I have perceived on that. It's not been purely on what the stats would reflect, but also like based on what my viewing of cricket for the last 30 years would say. So this is where I felt that, like, for example, if that 7 for 30 against India that came in Coca-Cola Cup in 2000, it would have come in maybe a big World Cup match, this would have changed completely for me. So that's the only concern I had. Like if you have to pick between Murli and Warne for a World Cup finals, whom would you pick?
Yeah, I think you're right. I probably would go Warne in that situation. And Warne can bat as well, as we said before. He gives you a little bit more on the bat and a little bit more with the field. I moved these guys around so many different times. I think you index a little bit more on finals than I do. I probably look at these things a little bit differently.
That is the reason Virat is a little higher for me as compared to AB de Villiers. That's the only reason, because he has won big matches for India.
Yeah, you say that. Well, but he's also, during his career for RCB in India, they were underperformers considering their talent at times. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that does always count in both directions. You still have him being, if you have a career like Virat, again, and you're going to play in finals as much as Virat, there's a chance that you're going to be good in one game. Here's the issue I have with the big game hypothesis. We just had a look, and Murali has a 18-year career, 15, 16-year career, and he has 9 games in knockout cricket. So if he plays 9 great games, you rate him a lot higher. And if he plays 9 bad games, you're like, well, he couldn't handle the big thing. But it's 9 games. You would never take 9 games as a sample size at any other stage when you were doing the way that you do your analysis, right? So that's why I just think, but as you said, if it was game in and game out, and it comes to the final, I'd probably pick Warne over it. But partly because Warne probably plays 40 finals, right? Warne's playing so many finals all the way through cricket, semi-finals and everything else, that I've got a bigger sample size with him. I kind of understand, in which direction that is going and everything else. So I do think that's a little bit different. In the final of the T20 World Cup in 2009, Sri Lanka made 138 and Murali took 1 for 20 and 3. I mean, it's fine. God, they should have bowled him another over, by the way. Him and Malinga were the best bowlers. Yeah, and they managed to not bowl Murali out in that game, which was a bit of a mistake. They kept bowling Mendes. So, again, good figures, but you're right. He didn't change it. I don't know. Anyway, he's not in the top 10. As I said, the Warne Murley thing was really confusing because I've got Pollock and Imran Khan not in my top 10. And I, on numbers, could make the claim that maybe both of them should be in the top 10, right? But I don't feel comfortable enough not having Warne and Murley. And also, isn't it a bit silly to not have a spinner? Are we really saying that these guys are not top 10 material?
Yeah, definitely. Like, because the top 10 is already having so many legends in them. So that's I think the margin is very small. So that's the only reason he was not in my, but just outside of my top 10, as I said. And we already have great names. So yes, I think I gave way too much importance to big matches. And if you look at the totality, and as I said, as if I have to rate the best spinner of all time, it has to be Muralidharan for me, no doubt about it.
Yeah, because I haven't done my book on the greatest test spinners of all time. Test bowlers of all time. I still don't know where I ultimately fall on that number. I will say this: when you look at their records against the best players compared to the worst players, Murley has a clear bias where he cleans up a lot of the worst players, and he has a slight exaggerated average. But having said that, his exaggerated average is basically Warne's average. So he's still averaging against the best players, basically what Warne does. But the big difference is that for Murley, he was bowling on spinning wickets most of his career.
Like, for example, 2001 versus against Lara, where he scored runs for fun against them. And one discussion I had seen of Lara, where he said, with Murli and Warne, it's with the other way around. Like with Warne, he would grow into confidence as the match progresses. Yeah. This is what he felt. And with Muralidharan, he knew that the first 45 minutes are going to be tough. But if he survives that phase, Murli will start going down in his confidence.
To be fair, I have told you this before, I think, that Lara basically averages 100 against both of them. So he may not be the perfect person to have a look at. Anyway, it's a fascinating one, all things considered. I'm at number 3.
Yes.
All right. At number 3, I am going to go Vivian Richards.
It's a lot higher for me.
You have him higher?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I have him as the 8th best batter in Tests and the best batter in ODIs. Right?
Yeah, best batter for me in ODIs. Yes.
Yeah.
And also the impact, the cultural impact and everything, because as I said, I've considered things outside of cricket also. Yeah. Because the kind of overall impact he had on the entire world dynamics at that time, people like Bob Marley kind of speaking about him, and the cultural impact he had outside of cricket, considering all that, everything, like that's the reason he's a little higher for me. So I'm perfectly fine with number 3, I guess.
I will explain later why I don't have him any higher. I think if you'd have asked me before I started this list, I might have had him at 1 or 2. And then once I started constructing the list, I was like, I don't know if I can make that claim. I don't know if he is better. Look, I think he's an incredible outlier in that he played the game in a way that hadn't been played in 80 years, right? And only one guy before him had ever played a similar method. He was so far ahead of one-day cricket. His numbers, if he played in one-day cricket now, he would still have good numbers. It is ridiculous what he did in one-day cricket. And in Test cricket, again, just absolutely a brilliant player. He isn't as consistent through his career. Like, he does have some peaks and troughs that happen. And I also think that he might be, considering we're talking about all-format cricket, he might be one of the first players that if you look at it, I think the format's actually bothered him a little bit because he gets really good at Test cricket, right? And then one-day cricket comes along, and then he gets really good at one-day cricket. And I think there are times when he's good at one and not good at the other, right? But he's the first guy who ever has to deal with that, right? Like, as in, like the other players, because the other players weren't even taking one-day cricket seriously, right? Whereas he's just like, no, this matters. I say that as a general sport. There were lots of people individually taking it seriously, but they hadn't worked out how to play it in the way that he had. Right?
Like in that era, 47 average and 94 strike rate, if I remember the numbers correctly. So what would be his true average in strike rate? If we
I do have them. Let me just bring it up. because I did look at that before. So if we look at it, we call them they're called Zulu numbers because they're named after the great Lance Klusener. And if it's bowling, we call them bird numbers after Joel Garner, which is another reason he had to be in this list. Viv Richards, if he was playing today, we would expect him to average 54 with a strike rate of 106.
106, but like he had 94 in that era.
No, he was 90. He was 90 in that era. So he gets like a 16. He gets a 16 bump.
I was expecting a little higher, to be honest, like 110, 100.
Yeah, it doesn't. So the highest one, if you want the adjusted numbers here, the highest guys on adjusted numbers is Sehwag goes up to 116. And Gilchrist goes up to 112. So he's still got the second. Oh, no, sorry. And De Villiers is 107. So he's still slightly slower than those guys. It is one thing I would say is the problem with Viv Richards is he was at his absolute, probably his peak in the 70s, and they don't play many ODIs. So it's a little bit trickier to be able to look at that, right, and work that out. Also had great innings in a World Cup final. Was very, very important in the fact that they won back-to-back World Cups, all these sorts of things. We haven't mentioned also captaincy. I know that you like, but also for me, great fielder and could bowl. Not a plus bowler, probably a slight negative bowler, but could bowl. So he gave you something back with the bowling. I think I would like to have faced Viv Richards. Like, I think I could have kept him out as a bowler, but he could be nagging. And he was there and thereabouts. And he was one of those guys who bowled smart. All right. Number 2. You've got number 2 on the list.
Sachin Tendulkar for me.
Oh! Do you want to know where I had him?
Where was he? Number 1.
Yep.
So number 1 on your list.
He was number 1 on my list.
All format.
All format.
It was number 2 for me.
Is Viv Richards number 1?
Yes.
Okay. That means that I actually think we're right here, but we've ended up somehow with the number 1 player eventually.
I didn't share my number 3 earlier, so I should have shared my number 3
is. Can I tell you who your number 3 is? It's Glenn McGrath.
Yes, you're right.
It had to be, because if it wasn't Glenn McGrath, I would have kicked you off the show. I'm okay with Murali because, as I said, I was more confused with Murali about where he ended up. I still think you've got him too low, but I was a bit confused with him. But if you didn't have Glenn McGrath, I think it's very hard to not have a top 3 that is Tendulkar, McGrath, Richards.
Yes.
I just think so. Can I give you my reasoning on why I have them ahead of Viv Richards? For both of them, I'm going to read this out. This is in my notes verbatim, Deepak. Glenn McGrath has a genuine case to be the best Test and ODI bowler ever. Sachin Tendulkar has a genuine case to be the best Test and ODI batter ever. And Viv does not. That's why I have those 2 ahead of Viv. It's not that I love Viv. And as I said, before I started doing the numbers, I was like, maybe I could have Viv as high as number 1. And the minute I looked into these 2 guys, I was just like, what are we talking about here? Because Viv is let's say Viv is a better ODI batter than Tendulkar. Tendulkar's probably second. Right? Now, let's say Bradman is a better Test batter than Tendulkar. Tendulkar's probably second.
Yes. This is like, for me, he's second on both the list. Test matches also, as well as ODIs also.
Yeah. So if he's number 2 in both, and I think he has a genuine case to be number 1 in both, right? Like, if you've read my book, I make a pretty good case that you could argue that Sachin could be number 1. It just happens to be that there's nothing you can do with Bradman. Bradman can't be number 2, whereas Sachin can be number 2. And in McGrath's case, I think you make it again. The thing with McGrath is that he basically just ends games so quickly, right?
Yes.
There's so many times that Australia just win a game of cricket because Glenn McGrath had the ball in his hand, and it was like there's nothing you could do. And so I have him as number 2, but I suppose I had nothing between those 2 guys. I didn't know how to separate Sachin and Pigeon at all.
And the reason why I had Viv a little higher was also like the kind of impact he had on the West Indies cricket. Like, West Indies was doing well in 60s also. The 2-1 loss in Australia where they get all the limelight and everything. But the personality shift that he brought on table, that mentality, that's the
Yeah.
reason why I think this is what
But
obvious
but
Sachin also
you're
did.
but that's a lot of Clive Lloyd erasure because Clive Lloyd actually starts that.
Yes, agreed. But like,
Like put it this way, this isn't taking away from Viv Richards or Kohli, but they don't exist without Clive Lloyd and MS Dhoni,
agreed.
right? And it's the same with Steve Waugh, right? Like you can be as high as you want to be on Steve Waugh, but Steve Waugh was allowed to do what he did because Alan Border built the foundation for it, right? And I think that I'm not saying that we're giving Viv too much, but I actually the hard thing for the West Indies was bringing all the different islands together, and that wasn't Viv's speciality. That was Clive Lloyd's speciality.
That was Clive Lloyd. This is what
Right.
Darren Sammy also did. I would say like some.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the really really tough thing. So yeah,
Agreed.
I think at that point, I think it's fascinating. Actually, I really do think it's fascinating the way that we've gone. Anyway, the number one player. Neither of us has picked Glenn McGrath as number one, and yet he has ended up as number one on our list. I have no real issue with the top two switching places or the top three switching places, but I think these are the three greatest players of all format players of all time. And so Glenn McGrath, Ruckshit, put it in. Now Ruckshit, being a cheeky producer, has put a question in, Deepak. Would you like me to read it for you?
Yeah. I just saw it.
What does Bumrah need to do to overtake McGrath?
So what is your answer to this?
So so we did a big chat with Bumble on this, and I think that the issue that Bumrah has is because he's not as good as McGrath with the new ball, Bumrah is constantly pulling the game back towards his team, whereas by the time McGrath's already got you ahead of every single game, right? Even if it's not wickets, it's economy, right? Like no one smashed him, so. One day cricket or test cricket, he's at least kept the game neutral more often than not, right? And then more often than not, Australia are actually ahead as well. So that's the big difference between the two of them. And I don't know how you quantify that, right? The difference also there is that Bumrah is doing, this is where the Joel Garner argument comes back in. Bumrah and Garner are doing it, and you throw Wasim Akram in there as well, just as big a threat at any stage in the game, right, as they are with the new ball. And that means there is no time that the ball is not in their hand that they are not a threat. And I don't know if that equals out with McGrath because McGrath already has your team ahead or not, or whether it doesn't. I don't know how to ultimately pass that information.
And I would like to add to this, Jarrod. I did one video on my channel where I had basically compiled the top 10 underrated innings of Indian cricket in the last 30 years. So I had put 38 runs of Sachin Tendulkar in Nairobi in that. And everybody asked me that question. And I even the reel did very well. So the shot went up to more than 1 million views, that particular shot, because everybody was confused. Because Nairobi in 2000, when McGrath was at the peak of his powers, Sachin said that when he walked up to the wicket, he talked to Ganguly that if we're going to basically play the normal cricket, McGrath is going to eat us for like breakfast. Like that's the kind of mindset people had against McGrath. And we all know what Sachin did in that match. First, that top edge that flew over third man for 6, then charging down the ground, hitting him for boundaries in 6, and then pull shot. And McGrath pulls his length back and he pulls him, where Harsha Bhogle says that this ball is not in Nairobi. So those 38 runs was so different. And this is what he could not do in 2003 league game when India and Australia met on a similar kind of a track where India got bundled out for 125. Because by that time, I think McGrath knew what to expect from Sachin. So he was prepared. Like just see, on a similar wicket, similar circumstances, similar stakes, he had a different plan altogether.
Yeah.
So that's the reason.
And they did that. India did that in a test series against McGrath, where they basically stopped playing shots against him in India, right? So that just the level of cricketer that he was he's so. I think people think he's one of the greatest cricketers of all time, and I still think he's underrated. A bit like Callis, because it's not as sexy as some of the other guys on this list. You gravitate to the sexier players, but it's like it is bizarre to think that they blocked out a seam bowler in India just because you didn't want to give McGrath a single chance because he was
And
just
if
so
you remember that series, what he did to Sachin in Eden Garden second innings, first innings in fact, LBW, and he didn't even appeal to the umpire. That reverse swinging end upper, and Sachin was like, he did not even appeal to the umpire. He was like, he knew that he got him. He just knew before the ball that he'll get him. So that Sachin in 2001 was still one of the best batters in the world at that time.
So Glenn McGrath played a season in the IPL. When
the economy was around 6, I guess.
6.6.
Yes,
When he was
I
finished.
remember that.
He was finished at that point. He was like 100 years old. He shouldn't have been playing in that tournament.
Exactly, and the keeper was standing up to him, if I remember correctly.
And they still couldn't hit him. And the averages, I think if you look at his overall T20 average, because he played in the Champions Trophy as well. I think if you look at his overall T20 average, and he might have played a couple of games for New South Wales, it's still like 25, 26, right? And he plays T20 cricket like. And, we can't see Ghana, obviously, and the game's changed a lot for Ghana and McGrath. Who knows how they would have adapted. But with McGrath, we at least see that little bit of, like, they still couldn't hit him at that age.
And one of the lives, I was confused about, like, this whole perspective about McGrath changed after a lot of discussions with you, because at one point of time, I clearly remember people had asked me about Cummins versus McGrath in terms of the impact, and I was all over the place. I even discussed it with you on a group, right?
Yeah.
And
I've never been more disgusted with you in my life.
and seriously, it was like I just completely forgot the impact and everything. And I said it on my live also, and I regretted it afterwards. Like once that live got completed, like what the hell I was even thinking. And people bashed me in the comment section also in that live. So they have every right to do that.
So on Bumrah's case, I would have to have a look at McGrath. McGrath must have a 14-year career. Does that sound about right? In international cricket?
93, yes. He debuted in 93, 2007, 14 years.
Yeah, right. So here's, to answer Rakshit's question. Bumrah has played Test cricket for 7 years and one-day cricket for 8 years. I think that's right.
2016, 10 years. His debut happened, today only. I think his debut.
You're right. No, it was 2016. It was.
Is it 23rd January only?
Because he hasn't played a one-dayer since 2023. No, you're right. Yeah. So 10 years. So the issue at the moment, obviously Bumrah's going to play more Test cricket, so it was 2018. So he'll be at about 8 years in Test cricket as well. I was looking first and last game because I was thinking of a retired player, but of course he has not retired. That's one of the big things. I think longevity is a big issue. If Bumrah keeps playing at the same level, he's got to be in the argument for best. He'll probably be the best T20 bowler of all time, regardless, I would say. That would be my view. I don't think that's going away unless something really bad happens at the end of his career. One-day bowler, I think he is a couple of steps behind, but like he's still in the top 5 or top 6. Like, I just mean he's maybe not in the argument for number 1 based on my very, very quick looking at the numbers yesterday, right? And then Test cricket at the moment, obviously, like we were talking about Joel Garner before, right? He's got McGrath has a great record, but at the moment, Bumrah has a better record than McGrath. Obviously, it's in a very good bowling era, and McGrath also bowled on very flat wickets in a very great bowling era, a batting era as well. But he bowled in both, to be fair to McGrath, so he had some good bowling eras as well. I think if you get another 4 years of Bumrah like this, I think that genuinely you then have the discussion of who is the greatest bowler of all time between McGrath and Bumrah, right? And then we have to go a lot deeper than we'll be able to do on this particular podcast as we have today. But yes, I think that's what he has to do. I think longevity is a part of it, right? Because that's one of the reasons we have Tendulkar so high, right? Is the longevity of everything. And also with McGrath was great pretty much for the 14 years. Maybe the first year it was a little bit dodgy, but outside of that, he was great. So Bumrah hasn't got to that level at the moment, but I can see how Bumrah can go past him. Right. But I can also see how Bumrah can become a good Test bowler for the rest of his career rather than continue at the great level. At one-day cricket, he could still have one more great tournament and win India a tournament and have a bowling average of 16. And I'm like, okay, we now need to put him back into the McGrath level of ODI bowlers. And as I said with T20, I don't think that goes too far away. But I don't think he needs to be like number one in all three, because it is all three. And I think that's a fascinating, or all four in his case, as we were talking about before.
Like, Jarrod, like if he would have won the 2023 finals, how would have that changed your opinion about him as an ODI bowler? Or it still remains the same for you?
No, so I don't change things based on that sort of thing, right? It's not the way that I look at things. It's a one-off game. And, you know, like I don't suddenly think that Pat Cummins is a better ODI bowler than him because of that one game. So I don't change my views on those sorts of things in that way. For me, more of it is longevity at the moment with Bumrah, right? It's a really short career at the moment, right?
Very short career.
When you're comparing to other greats. Like Garner, I would say Garner had a short career, but Garner had a 10-year career, right? And you know, in his days, he didn't have the sports science and everything else. And Garner was bowled to death for Somerset. My God. What a waste of perhaps one of the greatest cricketers of all time. And he's trundling in for Somerset, bowling on pudding pop wickets. So I think that once you get past the Garner sort of era, then it's like, well, if we're going to consider Garner this great, I think it's fair to have Bumrah at that same level. But we do need a couple more years, right? I think that's also fair. You know, in an era where we're comparing him to guys like Hadley, right, who and Imran Khan, who were still playing in their late 30s, early 40s, right? Now, as you said before, Imran Khan wasn't bowling as much in his at that age, but you know what I mean? So some of these guys have had incredibly long careers. So I think Bumrah needs a couple more years. I don't think that's going to change him massively, but for me, that would be like, well, now we have a 10-year sample size, right? And I feel a lot more confident in being able to say that. All right, we have a bunch of super chats. Some of which would just be people giving their own teams, I assume.
Yes.
Walking Alive gives us McGrath, Viv, Bumrah, Kohli, Garner, Sachin, Murali, Warne, Wasim, ABD in no particular order. So all of those guys were in our top 10, weren't they?
Murali was not there, just...
oh, yeah, sorry, you're right. Murali wasn't in our top 10.
He was just outside my top 10.
Yeah.
But you had him.
Yeah. King says, for all format greatness, firstly, the player needs to have played all three formats. So this could have been adjusted with... All this would have been adjusted. Is crap in my opinion.
Is crap.
No, that's a completely different thing that you're talking about, because we went back to 1975, King. If you want to do just from 2008 onwards, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, your comment's crap.
Yeah,
it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. Walkie Alive says we were horrid under MS in T20 post 07 World Cup.
But we reached 2017, 2014 finals. We reached 2016 semi-finals, because 2014 is a very underrated Indian World Cup campaign. I'm doing a video on it. It's going to go live tomorrow. So it's just a small 10 minutes video, because India dominated that World Cup with MS Dhoni template by using spinners also well throughout. Like Ashwin had 5.33 economy in the entire World Cup. Amit Mishra had 6 economy in the entire World Cup, and they had Jadeja, they had even Yuvraj, and they even had Raina. And even though India was not having amazing paces, like Bhuvi was still coming up the ranks at that time, and then they had Mohit Sharma. I don't know whether Shami was there or not, but like still we managed to reach finals without even losing a single match. And if we would have batted well or finished well in that finals, it could have been a different story altogether. So that's why, like 2014, I think is a very underrated T20 campaign under Dhoni. So that's the reason I would like to differ a bit on this.
King 007. Kohli doesn't have a great T20 domestic career. Most runs, most 50s, most 100s, 200s cap. Yeah, dude. Counting stats. They're great, mate. I'm not going to sit here and go through all the things that's wrong with that. I'm not saying he doesn't have a great. I said he was still top 10.
Yes.
If that's not great, then you don't know what you're talking about. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but there are clearly players, even in his own side. He had 2 batters in his own side who were incredible in Gale and AB de Villiers.
And can I add something here? I think we are yet to see the best of him in IPL. I don't know. I think this
Yeah, I
season
kind of
he
agree
might.
with you. That's why I kind of liked his. I actually probably rated his T20 numbers internationals more high because it's a ridiculous record in T20 internationals.
Yes.
Whereas for a lot of players, I don't. Right, but in his case,
Because
I
I
kind of
think
feel like he's just played better for India than he has in the IPL.
yes,
And yeah,
this IPL will be massive for him. I don't know. I have this hunch that because the kind of form that he is in, he's going to unlock a lot more. Even might match 2016. We never know.
King's not happy that Kohli's not number one. He's not number one because of what we've explained, right? Like when we're talking all formats, that also includes Test cricket, right? 5 ICC trophies. How many ICC trophies would Viv Richards have won if they played ICC tournaments as much as Kohli had? How many trophies would they have won if McGrath had played in T20 cricket in his peak, right? Because Viv Richards ends up with 2 ICC trophies, right? If you add in World Test Championships and you add in T20 to Viv Richards, he might have ended up with 8 or 9, right?
Even more. You never know.
This is a nonsensical comment, right? We still, where do we have Kohli on our list?
I think 4th or 5th, I guess. 4th.
What? Like, come on.
4th. Just outside of
That's the
these
same
three,
cap.
that's it.
That's the same comment twice in a row. I don't know why it's come up twice. Kohli says just a bunch of Kohli haters nitpicky at him while glorifying everyone else. I mean, I'm writing a book on Virat Kohli, mate. I love Virat Kohli. He's one of my favorite cricketers of all time. You would have to be an idiot to think I don't like Virat Kohli, but thank you for all the free money. Again, I'm not going to keep reading these out, King, because clearly it's all on the same thing. We've explained why we have those players up. You want to do it from 2008 onwards, which is absolutely fine. But we've done it from 1975 onwards. So go and get your own YouTube channel, and you set it up, and you do it from 2008 onwards. And from 2008 onwards, it's up to it's Kohli, AB, and Bumrah who are going to be in the top 3.
And Kohli automatically becomes number 1, to be honest.
Right?
Because
We don't even argue with that. I'm not sure he becomes automatically number 1. I think Bumrah and AB both
on
have
our
really
list,
good
because then
Oh,
he's
on our
number
list.
4.
Yeah, there you go. So he is number 1 when you look at it that way. But thank you again for the free money. Abela says, I would have Ricky over MSD. No way he's an Nord. So where did I have Ricky? I had Ricky. Where did I end up putting Dhoni? I had Ricky and Dhoni about the same at the end.
Ricky was at my 13th.
Yeah, I had him at 15th, but if I put Dhoni slightly ahead of him, he's about 16th. But they would have been close to each other. I think the thing you've got to remember with Ponting compared to Dhoni is that the second skill element, right? That's an incredible second skill to have with Dhoni.
Exactly.
So even if you're like, wow, Ponting was a way better batter than Dhoni, it's like, yeah, and Ponting was a great fielder and maybe one of the greatest fielders of all time. He wasn't a wicketkeeper. So the amount of balls that Dhoni is impacting, right, is still huge compared to Ponting. But yeah, I, again, have them very, very similar on my list. Again, it's the same thing again. Oh my God, that guy just kept giving us money on the same topic. Cricketing says true average of Sachin and adjusted strike rate. Oh, okay, wait, I do have those here.
Even I'm also interested to know this, to be honest. I don't know why I didn't even ask it.
Tendulkar is his adjusted averages goes up to 49 and his adjusted strike rate goes up to 99. So if you compare that to Kohli's, which is 60 and 96, right? So slightly different players, slightly different eras and everything else. But yeah, I think you can still make a claim. Just depends on which direction you want to go. As I said, and we had Viv Richards at what, 54 and 105.
When it comes to Virat and Sachin, even as the better ODI batter, I get a little confused, to be honest. Because
yeah, I think that's fair. I actually don't. I don't think there's. You throw AB in there as well. I actually think that top 4. If you ask me on a different day, I think I could completely change it. I think Kohli has a genuine
because
case
the amount
to
of
be number 1
matches
of all
that
time.
Kohli has won as a chaser.
The chasing thing I do like, yeah.
Yes, that becomes because somehow.
Okay, can I give you this? Right, we get really excited with chasing because it's easy to tell if someone has won a game chasing, but it is very hard to tell if someone has won a game by batting first, right?
Exactly.
And so
Yes.
I can't remember. I think it might be Viv, who was really good batting in the first innings, and West Indies probably just won a bunch of those games, right? I'm not saying that what Kohli does is we've only had like 3 or 4 guys in the history of the game who have that ability, so we know it's very special regardless of that. And he, is on a completely different tier to some of the other guys we just mentioned. But it's much easier to be like, well, he's not out at the end and they've chased his total, where it's like, if you bat in the first innings and you just put on an extra 30 or 40 runs, and so the other team can't get anywhere near you, right? That's much harder to work out. And that, just, if you're having an intellectual conversation, that's kind of where you have to be honest with those. But yeah, Sachin was also the longevity of Sachin's career in ODI cricket, I think is just, the longevity of his career in anything. Greg Chappell says, remember VK once said, we have the World Test Championship, so I can't change my change that much. Okay, cool. Dixit says, Deepak logic holds for Virat. In T20 2012, he was India's best bat. 2014 semi-finals, 2016 semi-finals. Yeah. As I said before, guys like Kohli, Warne, McGrath played lots and lots of finals, and it holds up. It just depends on how much you index that. I find it a little bit like Richard Hadley probably hasn't played in many finals, right? And it might be why we both have him a little bit lower, despite the fact that Richard Hadley was like obviously a great in both formats as well. So it does get a little bit tricky when you start to over-index on the finals. But yeah, there's no issue with Kohli. He's very, very high on that. And one of the things I did with my list today is I wanted to know if I needed, like, I didn't come in with it thinking it was the final list.
So can I ask
wanted
one
to
question
change it.
here? Like, if Kohli still has a few years left in him as a T20 batter also and as an ODI batter also, so what would, like, if he has to be in top 3, like he's at 4 for us right now, right? So if he has to be in top 3, what else he needs to achieve from your
His
perspective?
biggest issue is probably Test cricket, isn't he? And he can't fix that.
But like,
I think if he plays, if he was if he had 2 or 3 years where he gets his strike rate up to what it should be in the IPL, right? I think you have to give him a bump. But does he get into the top 3 for you then? Because there's not much you can do in one-day cricket, is there? The only thing you can do in one-day cricket is have another World Cup. And
look, as a white ball batter, I rate him higher than Sachin any day. Let's be very honest on this. So as a white ball batter, still for me, he's little higher than Sachin. As a test, doesn't stand a chance, because like the longevity and the kind of attacks Sachin had to face and everything, it just completely changes massively in the favor of Sachin. That's why he is higher on my list. On a white ball, I think
that's what I mean. So that's why having a big World Cup, I don't know. I mean, I suppose if he goes, at the moment, we're saying that Sachin still has a genuine chance to be thought of as the best ODI batter of all time, right? As we've got it listed here at the moment.
And same is the case with Virat also for me. Like,
yeah, no. But what I'm saying is, what if Virat has one more great World Cup campaign where he makes a bunch of runs, his strike rate is out of this world, and wins the trophy, right? At that stage, do we just say he's automatic? Sachin no longer has a claim to be the best player. Do you know what I mean?
I think then he automatically enters that top 3 again.
That's what I mean. That changes a little bit. But who do you drop out of the top 3?
Tough. I think we will have. I think we'll cross.
You
the
see
bridge
what I'm
once we
saying?
reach
That's what
there.
I mean. This is what when I did the 50 greatest Test batters of all time. This is what the tough thing was. It's very easy to come up with reasons why players should go up. Like this is the whole Joe Root one at the moment. Everyone's like, oh, Joe Root's got to be higher, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So we're saying he did better than Herbert Sutcliffe, who opened the batting and averaged 58. And then you get these blank looks coming back to you, right? Because that's a hard conversation to have.
Exactly.
You and I can both make conversations about why Joe Root might be better than Herbert Sutcliffe and everything else. But it's not an easy decision to suddenly be like, he's better than Wally Hammond or Herbert Sutcliffe or Kumar Sangakkara or Jacques Kallis. These are all also in the same tier, right? And that's why I did this in tiers and everything else, because ultimately there is no real answer, right? Like we both as a combined person have picked Glenn McGrath as number 1, and neither of us had him at number 1.
Number 1. So he was number 3 for me.
Right? So it really is quite tricky when you get down to that level. Someone wants me to explain Jeff Thompson. Jeff Thompson was he's a freak athlete. He sort of like this incredible elasticity to his muscle tendons and everything, is what I was told by people who looked at him. And it would just snap. And that snap was incredible. I don't think he's quicker than Lee and Akhtar and Tates and Mark Wood, right? I don't think he's quicker than them, but I also think he's roughly the same pace as them. But we've never seen a bowler quicker in his era than everyone else. The way
so where was Michael Holding then, like in that list?
Of pace? So when they did this speed test, Michael Holding was about 12 to 14 kilometers slower than Tomo.
Oh, because I read it somewhere that he clocked 98 or 99 miles, or maybe I don't know.
When they did the test, if you go back, it's online. You can have a look at it. It's a fascinating.
I've seen that video.
Yeah. He's a long way behind. I think is it Holding and Roberts a second, I want to say, and they are a long way behind Tomo. But it was one test on one day, right? That's all we really know about it. It wasn't the most scientific thing either. Where are we here? Abhilash says, Kohli played a harder and visually visible ball in ODI compared to Sachin. That's a really interesting thing. I hadn't thought about that. Sachin played softer and reverse swing, which is why he's the GOAT for me in ODI. Yeah, and this is why it's so hard. The guy before who's very angry about all the different players, about the fact that we're even looking beyond 2008. Even from 2008 to 2026, people have played completely different versions of T20 cricket and one-day cricket and Test cricket, right? And so if you played from 2008 to 2018, your numbers aren't going to look as good. So Kohli's overall strike rate in, what we say in the IPL is 137, or in domestic T20 is 137, right? It's actually, that's actually better than what it looks. And the same with David Warner's record, because they actually played in an era when there was more slow scoring, right? So even if we were to do this, you have to do it contextually, right? So it's really, really hard. The other thing I would say, when you say that Sachin played with a softer ball, he also played, when he played with a softer ball, it was actually very hard to get players out in the middle overs because that ball was so soft. So yes, there was reverse swing on occasions, right? But people have forgotten the ball didn't reverse swing in every single ODI game. There were plenty of games when there was no reverse swing. And even when it reverse swung, it was quite often still a soft ball, right? So
this is a new perspective for me, to be honest. Like I've never thought it like this.
So I don't think,
and it's quite a valid one also, because a harder ball can get the edges and stuff, and we've seen that in Test cricket massively.
And also, there are guys who like batting against a harder ball, and there are guys who like batting against a softer ball, right? If you look at some of those guys who bowled in the 2000s, who bowled with those weird actions, like Darren Lehmann is the king of this, right? Like Darren Lehmann wouldn't be able to bowl in modern ODI cricket because he needed the soft ball to be able to bowl. Right, he would not be able to bowl with the harder balls at all. So there are, it's completely different. One of the great things I think with Sachin's career, and I've looked at this more of it as a test than anything else, but you can do it in one-day cricket as well, is that he plays through about 4 generations of the game and still dominates. And I think that is a really, really fascinating thing.
And he never had a peak. He never had an absolute peak. Like no series with 500 plus runs, nothing. Just still. Maybe 98 he had a golden chance, but that was just a 3-test series. So apart from that, like he never had an absolute peak. If you look at number 1, all like batters across formats, he was never even the number 1 ODI or T20 batter or Test batter for a longer period of time. Like he just never had that crazy peak. He was consistent throughout.
Where would you rate Sangha and Jay Wardner? I didn't look at Jay Wardner's stats because I don't have him particularly high enough in Test cricket. Yes, but I had Sangakkara in my top 26 now. I think we've admitted, because I missed Dhoni, and I think Waqar Younis. I think I'd have Dhoni and Waqar Younis slightly ahead of Sangha. I looked at Sangha because a couple of other people had recommended Sangha. I still, because of the wicket keeping, although I know he doesn't wicket keep as much as Gilchrist or Dhoni does, but he does offer wicket keeping. His one-day numbers were fine, but they didn't pop enough for me to change my opinions massively. The Dixit says top 15: KP, Lara, Root, Kane. If Smith wins a LE 28. I mean, Smith. The reason that Smith and Root are not on this list is not particularly their fault. Well, maybe it is slightly their fault. And Kane. It's just that they haven't played enough of the third format, and it was a really important format at the time. Or in Kane's case, he wasn't particularly good at it. Root, I think, could have been better at it, but England didn't seem to want to use him. And, Smith is a complicated T20 player. Like, if Kohli's complicated, Smith is complicated so much more.
Exactly. If you look at today's era, like Sky just, I think, made his debut for India 5 years back. He played his 100 T20 match. Like, Rohit played for 17 years. He played 160 T20 matches. So, T20 in today's era is such a relevant format. So if you're not playing that significantly screws your chances to be in top 15 or maybe top 10.
And that doesn't mean that these guys aren't better cricketers, because as we said before, Root and Gavaskar would fly up this list. If we're looking at the best cricketer, right, I think both of them comes back into it, right? Like, there are lots of different things, but we were specifically looking at all format. I just want to look at KP. I think I looked at KP's numbers. I just see the... I don't have them in front of me. Sorry. KP was one of those guys that, because he was so low down, I had him where Mahela was, even lower than Mahela, I think, in the top 50 test batters. He wasn't there. Again, I think Lara is a very underrated ODI batter. I didn't look at him because I didn't think he would fit in the top 10 here. You could maybe get him again. Some of the plays he looked at, he might be slightly higher than some of the guys I've looked at. It'd be really interesting to look at Lara versus Sehwag, right? To be like, who was the better all-format cricketer? Because I think they were both underrated as one-day players.
And Lara, as a talent-wise, obviously, he is one of the best test batters ever to play the game. He was so innovative, so different. Like, the first memory of him I have was 96 quarterfinals against South Africa. And on that slow, low wicket, the way he batted, he was ahead of his time. So this is what used to happen with him. Like, he would come up with something unimaginable. Like, South Africa in 96, I think they were the best side in that tournament, if I have to put it up. And the way he was he was not smashing them around, like hitting sixes or something, but still he was better than runner ball, and he was just making a mockery of all the plans that they had with ease. Like, it's like as if like slicing through butter it was. So this is what amazes me about Lara. Like, on a given day, if he's in the mood, he would just...
I think of all those guys, Lara took one-day cricket the least seriously. And I think that when we saw him in World Cups and he was taking it seriously, like that game against South Africa in the 96 tournament, I think we know what Lara could do. I still think his numbers actually hold up better. As I said, I still think he's underrated, but you've got Ponting, you've got Tendulkar in his era. You've also got guys like Sehwag and Gilchrist and Mark Waugh. There's a lot of guys with really, really good numbers in that era, right? Who you may, outshone him. And then, of course, since then, we've had a lot more one-day players come in. So Lara's just a bit more confusing from that perspective. Cricketing says Sachin has 15 ODI runs, an average of 49 pre-2 ball. Just on the pre-2 balls thing, it's not pre-2 balls, by the way. They use 2 balls in 50 over games all the way through the history of cricket. But what they used to do is have 1 ball and then change it at about the 35 over mark. They've always had 2 balls. 1 ball has never really lasted the full 50 overs. It's very rare for that to happen. It happened occasionally. They always would throw out a replacement ball. People have completely forgotten that fact, by the way, which also helps and hurts in different ways. But yeah, look, Sachin was just incredible and would have been incredible in any era that you would put him in. I have no issue there. The Dick Shit says, if Pat and Josh dominates T20 World Cup, Cummins is an interesting one because I think his white ball numbers look better than he feels as a white ball player.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's already won one T20 World Cup. I don't think that changes. Josh Hazlewood, I think if Josh Hazlewood had played white ball cricket the way he is now his whole career, I think he's might have been a better better all-format player than Mitchell Starc. I don't know if that gets him in the top 10 because I don't know who he would knock out in the top 10 here. But he could have been a much better white ball cricketer, and Australia didn't even want him playing white ball cricket, which is ridiculous looking back on it. Rohit is, I think we said at the top, Dixit, you might not have been around. With Rohit, we just thought that the test wasn't quite strong in the same way that we were talking about Root and
Warner also the outside record.
Yeah,
record for Warner.
It's just not quite there on that third format. If you go back to the start of the podcast, we talk about Warner, Gale, and Sangakkara. Gale is. We'll just say this one last time because this podcast now gone for 2 hours, and people will have forgotten it at the start. But Gale, we both rate him so high on Test cricket and domestic T20 cricket. It's the international white ball stuff for the West Indies where he doesn't pop as much, which is hilarious to think that. Cricketing says, could Sachin's 154 wickets give the edge over Kohli? I forgot about that. That's a very good one.
Exactly. That's a very strong point.
We mentioned
then as an ODI player, he becomes better.
Oh, one thing I would say, though, if you're going to do that, which is very fair, you also have to remember that Virat is a much better fielder than Sachin.
Sachin always had a good arm. I don't think
so. No, Sachin was a fine fielder, but Virat's a proper predator in the outfield. I think if you're picking a fielder, I think Virat goes ahead of him. But just on this we did mention that with Viv Richards, so we should have mentioned it with, and we mentioned Warne's batting, so we should have mentioned Sachin's bowling as well. Not that they were plus bowlers, but that they had bowling.
I have done a reel on this. It's also reached more than 1 million, where I mentioned that Sachin is such an underrated ODI bowler. There's a reel, there's a shot on my YouTube channel which is clocked more than 1 million views. So this is exactly what I said, because the guy has 2 5-wicket hauls, more than Shane Warne. Shane Warne just has 1 5-wicket haul.
I was shocked, by the way, when I looked at Kapil Dev, and I think he had 1 5-wicket haul and like 2 4-wicket hauls, and I was like, what? That's terrible. Then I looked at Hadley, and Hadley barely had any 5-wicket hauls as well. And so because there weren't as many wickets back in that era, like for someone like Sachin to get a record like that is quite rare, because people weren't taking 4 and 5-wicket hauls in ODI cricket. Whereas now it's a lot more normal, right? It feels.
And he took it on the same ground.
Yeah.
Both the times.
I think I've done some research into Sachin's bowling. It's hard to compare his bowling to like someone like Viv Richards, who bowls like the 5th bowler. And so Sachin is more used when the conditions were favouring him, was Viv Richards bowls all the time. I think Sachin's still a better bowler than Viv, but Viv, as I said before, was quite clever. Anyway, Hair Ties for Glorfindel says, when's your Kohli book coming out? My Kohli book is coming out in, what year are we in? 2026, October of 2027. So I think it's being hopefully released for the World Cup.
Yes, so we had an amazing... So I took him around in Delhi. So we went to all the houses where Kohli lived. We even went to meet his coach. So lot of, I think, groundwork was done just to basically understand like what it was being Virat Kohli. So Jarrod has amazing surprises packed in that. So even went to like notice the kind of trees exist.
I did do a lot of studying of trees and birds when I was in Delhi. But Vinny says, why was Chandra Paul not mentioned in the Test 11? We didn't do a Test 11, did we?
No.
Or have you done a Test 11 recently?
No. We haven't done that. So it's an all format.
Chandra Paul's in my book. I found number 34-ish, 35-ish maybe. I love Chandra Paul. I think he's a very underrated player. From looking at Reddit, I'm not alone. A lot of people think he's very overrated, but I think when Chandra Paul didn't want to get out, he was incredible. But I don't think we did a Test 11 here. But Chandra Paul is not going to be mentioned on a show like today. How do you feel about how we've ended up here?
Brilliant. I think only surprise was we kind of overlooked Sachin's bowling record. Apart from that, I think we've covered everything. And
you know what?
Now, if I look back
now, thinking about his bowling, I think you can make a claim that he goes ahead of McGrath because you get that bowling.
Yes.
Although McGrath was a very good outfielder for a bowler.
And Sachin has won matches as a bowler, as an ODI bowler.
That's what I mean.
In fact, he's won a Test match also. If you consider that spell against Australia and Eden Gardens.
I'm doing a big piece at the moment on the greatest part-time bowlers in Test cricket. And he is like I basically started with him because I think he is almost the prototypical part-timer in that you don't use him all the time, but when you do use him, he has usage for you and can be handy. So I find him a very fascinating bowler, actually. Whereas,
And
as
you
I
know,
said, with someone like Viv wasn't, even in Test cricket when Viv bowled, Viv was just bowling to just like dart the ball through and bring someone else on. So they weren't even used in the same way.
So, like, three biggest victories India had against Australia in Sachin's era. Two of them, like, all three of them, the part timers had a role to play. Like, if you look up at that Eden Garden, where his spell changed the match, where he got Gilchrist, Shane Warne, and I think Hayden. And in Adelaide also, he got Martin and Steve Waugh in one of the spells.
Yeah.
In the second innings of Australia. And then Sehwag did the same against Australia in Perth, where he got Gilly bowled around the legs when Gilly and I think Clark were like running away with the match at that time. So he bowled him around the leg.
But this is just on one thing here that is really important is you and I will find it very hard to go through the times that Viv Richards has taken important wickets.
But
Do you know what I mean?
But is it like, Jarrod, because they had such an amazing quartet of bowlers that people just wanted to maybe like take him down because
No. But what I mean is we don't have those games weren't watched by as many people, right? How many one days with Viv Richards have played that weren't even broadcast in the vast majority of countries, right? It's like we call it. I'm starting to call this the Sunil Gavaskar rule. Right, because I don't think people understand how good Sunil Gavaskar was. And that's because the vast majority of his great work was done before most Indians have TVs. And most people in the rest of the world did not have cable TV to watch him either. Right? So unless you saw Sunil Gavaskar make runs against your team, right, chances are you don't have a high opinion of Sunil Gavaskar. Right? And you look at him as a one-day player, right? What's he famous for as a one-day player? The innings where he gives up. Where he actually goes on to have a very good one-day career. And so you have to be careful with someone like Viv. I'm sure if we went through Viv's record, there are probably many great partnerships he broke that really helped the West Indies over the years too, right? Like I'm not saying he's a better bowler than Sachin. He's a different kind of bowler than Sachin, and they were used in very different ways. But the point being is that those sorts of things are really, really hard. It's a bit like Garner, right? Like you don't have Garner on your list. And when you were not factoring in Garner, you probably weren't even thinking about the gully fielding, right? Because why would you, right? Like you have to know that fact to be able to bring it in. And then once you do that and you go, well, there aren't many guys who can be a genuine catching option and a fast bowler in the same team, right? Like, in the history of the game, shout out to Shawn Pollock, who also could do that, by the way, but there aren't that many. Anyway, Deepak, we can't keep going. This was fun. It is, I think our list is what it is. It happened.
Yes.
It's a thing that happened. I think this is a starting point for the conversation rather than an ending point for the conversation. But lots of fun having you on. Remember, you can support us on Combox by subscribing on our main channel. You can also subscribe to Good Areas or to First Umpire directly. And I'm sure some of these clips will be cut up for socials if people can handle cutting up a 2-hour-long video as well. But thank you to everyone for being here, and we will see you again very, very soon. I love the fact, by the way, that we finished the 2-hour chat on all format players with a super chat about Shivnarine Chanderpaul. Combox. The game lives on.